So we now have the news that we've been eagerly waiting for. We know when this game goes up for pre-order. We know when we will be able to get our grubby little hands on it. We know how much it's going to cost. And thanks to the video yesterday, we also know more about the gameplay. So in this video today, I am going to take you through, I'll talk about the price. The price is the price. We're not going to concentrate on that too much. But I will take you through all the different steps of gameplay, because I think a lot of people are waiting for when sort of YouTubers get their hands on any of these kind of the early release copies and stuff, and people like to see what the gameplay is about before sort of spending their money. The problem is with these games is the release of those videos is basically restricted by Games Workshop, and they only go live at the same time that pre-orders go live. So if you're waiting to watch one of those gameplay videos, unfortunately, you'll probably missed out on pre-ordering it from the first wave. So what I thought I'd do is I would take you through all the different steps of the gameplay, give you as much information as possible, so that at least when it comes to Saturday and it's ready for pre-order, you know enough, or you know as much as you can to decide whether that's something you want to pre-order. So yes, as I said, we have all of that information now. We know that the pre-order date is this Saturday, the 3rd of April. That's this weekend. And pre-orders will go live at 10 a.m. in your local time, unless you live over in the US, in which case it is 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's just so that basically the whole of the US gets their hands on it at the same time, or gets to pre-order it at the same time. The price has been confirmed from the UK at £125. It's been confirmed in euros at 155 euros. It's kind of unconfirmed, but I have heard that it's 199 US dollars, which is maybe slightly cheaper than we maybe anticipated. And I've also heard this morning that it's been confirmed at 290 Australian dollars, which is probably a bit cheap, I think, compared to normal comparisons. Originally, I'd compared it to Warcry Catacombs, which is £125 in the UK, and is 350 Australian dollars. So yeah, the exchange rates with Australia and stuff is just like, it's almost just pick a number out of a hat at the minute. But if the rumours this morning, I've read it right, it should be 290 Australian dollars. The worry for this one is, however, GW are already telling us stocks appear to be limited. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean this is a limited release. It just means there's not a lot of stock for this first wave. GW have said that it's a continuing product. They should be going to reprint it. The problem is, if you don't get your hands on it in this initial pre-order wave, we don't know when those restocks will come. If you think about Indomitus, I think they went up for sale, was it August time, I think it was. That initial wave sold straight out, and then they did a reprint again, like a made to order, but they didn't ship until kind of like December later that year. So if you really do want this, be prepared at 10 o'clock. Make sure your My Warhammer account is all kind of prepped and up to date, and you've got all your credit card details and stuff saved in there, and be ready to try and pre-order it. You should, and I say should because we don't know for certain, you should be able to buy this again down the line at a later date when restocks come in. But again, as I said, we have no idea when those restocks will actually come. Independent retailers are sort of saying that they're only getting 8 copies each. That's not a lot. So if you've pre-ordered it already from your friendly local gaming store, if your friendly local gaming store is taking kind of like a list of names of interested parties and stuff, just absolutely make sure that you 100% are guaranteed a copy from them, because what I don't want folks to do is think if these friendly local gaming stores are taking sort of 20 pre-orders, only getting 8 copies, but they're not telling some folks that they've missed out. I'd hate for people to not get the opportunity to try and buy it elsewhere. So just confirm it with your local gaming stores if you're on some kind of like sort of pre-order list. Because the rumours are is that they're only sending 8 out to each individual store. So the gameplay, what do we know about it? We saw a video go up yesterday, and I've kind of broken it down. I've gone through it, and I've tried to reference it back as well to as much information as I know about things like Silver Tower and Blackstone Fortress as well. Now, what you're doing during the game is basically you get to do, or you choose to do your mission sort of as one of 4 journey types, and these seem like the different missions that you can do during the game. The 4 journeys are the Hunt journey. These will basically allow you to reduce Radakar's influence across Ulfenkarn. And I think from what I saw in the video, this basically sees you having to kill a number of enemies in that particular mission to complete that mission. I'll come on to like influence and fear and stuff in a minute, because they're important mechanics within the game. The next one is the scavenge journeys. These basically have you searching for treasure. sort of looking around to pick up things that will allow you to upgrade your weapons or pick up artifacts that will help you on your missions. Deliverance journeys will help you reduce the fear of the inhabitants, the people of Ulfancon. This one is slightly different as well in the fact that it's not a pre-generated map for this one. So Hunt, Scavenge and Decapitation basically have pre-generated layout maps. So if you play on one of those, I'll show you one of those for the Hunt in a second, but it shows you exactly how to set the map up. The Deliverance journeys are basically kind of they're kind of randomly generated as you play them. So it's nice that there's a little bit of difference between those. Decapitation journeys are the ones that see you going out to defeat the leaders and eventually Radakar himself. So it looks like essentially, if I flip ahead and you can see this bit, this is the fear and the influence track, and obviously each of the different sort of bad guys that you need to fight against. And these are mechanics that basically progress the game and force you to not just kind of stand around kind of searching for treasure all the time. As the fear increases, basically, or let me just read what it says. It says, the city of Ulfancon is subject to two conditions, influence and fear. While you work to destroy each of Radakar's lieutenants and the Wolf King himself, you need to keep an eye on both of these factors. If the citizens succumbs to fear, Ulfancon itself will be swallowed, and if Radakar's influence in the city grows too strong, the Wolf King will destroy your airship, the adamant, and put an end to your efforts. So basically, to keep pushing you and to have a little bit of pressure on the game, you have to make sure the fear level doesn't get too high. You have to make sure the influence level doesn't get too high. And in order to control these, you choose between which of these different kind of journeys that you want to do. So if the influence is getting a bit too high, you need to go and do some hunt missions, some hunt journeys to try and bring it down. If the fear is getting too high, you need to do some deliverance missions to bring that down. If you're getting ready to go and battle the kind of like the bosses, if you like, you might need to go and do some scavenge journeys to be able to go and get some extra weapons or upgrades or that type of stuff to make sure that you're strong enough to battle against the big guys, if you like. So there's a mechanic in there that stops you just going on a scavenge journey every single time trying to get better and better weapons, because otherwise the fear and the influence will get out of control and it'll be game over anyway. So I think this is really interesting. It's quite a nice way to kind of thematically sort of make you choose different types of missions. So this is what I was talking about before. This is a pre-generated map for the Hunt, and this one is the Alleyways map. And you can see there, basically it shows you all the different layouts with, let me just zoom in on this one and you can get a better view of it. So here you can see all of the different tiles that you will need. Hopefully it's when you actually come to get your hands on it, they might be numbered, or it might be sort of maybe you've just got to try and sort of find them in the box. But what you've got on the corners here, if you can just you won't be able to see my little cursor, but in the four corners, let me just use this laser pointer here. There's one here, one here, one here, and one here. And essentially what they are the places where once you've finished your mission, that's where you can call in your sky ship and basically and get away again. So yeah, so that's the pre-generated map. You'll also see on that map there are 3 red dots there as well, and they show these are the objective markers. These are basically where you can search for treasure, or you can search for realm stones. Realm stones are the things that you can take back to your ship between missions to upgrade your weapons. However, they are also the spawn points for the enemies on that map as well. So how you basically begin your game, you begin the encounter by drawing the same number of these encounter cards as there are those little red dot spawn points on the map, and this will tell you sort of how many of each type of enemy will be in your mission. So if I just zoom in there, you can be able to see it. So here we can see this one is for the Ulfan Watch, which is the skeleton soldiers, if you like. And what you'll see here is there's level 0, level 1, level 2, all the way to level 5. Those levels are the levels of your heroes. As you progress through your missions, your hero basically levels up, and the stronger your level, the more difficult the enemies will be to attack. So you can see here in level 0 and level 1, level 0 is where you start. There will be 2 Ulfan Watch. At level 2, there's 4 Ulfan Watch. At level 3, there's 5 Ulfan Watch, and so on and so forth. So as you level up and your heroes become stronger, the enemies you encounter don't necessarily become stronger, but there are more of them that you need to battle with. So the game itself is broken down into these 5 different phases of a game turn. There is the journey phase, there is the destiny phase, there's the initiative phase, the activation phase, and the event phase. And I'll take you through those now. So the journey phase is split into 2 separate steps. The first step is what's called the Nightfall step, and this sees you move the token 1 space around what's called the Sky Vessel board. Let me just zoom in and show you this. So if I can make sure you can see that, so you can see here where this where the finger is on the outside track. You move that around at the start of each turn, and this simulates time moving on within Ulfenkon, sort of like through the time of day, if you like. And it is another mechanic which pushes you on and stops you kind of dawdling along and taking too long, because as we know, we saw with some of the cards and stuff, there is a day and a night mechanic as well. So as if you take too long, if you take too many turns to complete your mission, it will eventually become nighttime. And we know with the vampires in the game and all of that kind of stuff, and the zombies coming out, those models or those enemies become stronger when it becomes nighttime. So there's this kind of like this ticking time bomb, if you like, of we've got to control fear, we've got to control influence, we've still got to try and get some sort of upgrades and things to be able to take on the bad guys, and we've got to worry about it becoming nighttime because the enemies will become stronger as well. The other step is the quest step, and this is not used in every different journey. It certainly wasn't used in the hunt journey that they show in the video, so we don't know too much about this one at the minute, but I'm assuming that for specific quests there'll be something extra that we need to do here. Next up, we have the Destiny phase, and this sees us taking the 5 black Destiny dice. If you've played Silver Tower or you've played Blackstone Fortress, you'll be familiar with the Destiny dice. Destiny dice are essentially, they're kind of like a common pool of initiative dice that everybody can use, every hero can use to kind of pull from. So if you've kind of run out of your own initiative dice, which I'll come on to next, but you still need that 1 extra attack, or you just need to kind of move that extra couple of squares, that's what these Destiny dice are for. They basically push you, allow you to push your hero that little bit harder. So how Destiny dice work is you would roll the 5 Destiny dice. Here you can see the person has rolled a 6, a 4, a 3, and 2 2s. Any multiples or any kind of like any doubles, any triples, any quadruples or any quintuples, you remove them from the game. So in this instance, you'd get rid of the 2 2s and just keep the 6, the 4, and the 3. And then what you do on the Sky Vessel board, you pop them into that white area on there, and those dice are available for all of your heroes, all of your players to be able to sort of use to do certain sort of actions within their turns. Next up, during the initiative phase, each player rolls their initiative dice. So each player starts with the same number of dice as there are squares on their card. Here you can see Yeltsin Derek has space for 4, and you can see that basically once you've rolled them there, let me just zoom in, once you've rolled them, you just pop them there onto your card. As you take damage, these squares will fill in with wound tokens, and we'll come on to that later on. So eventually what will happen is if you take enough wounds and you fill all of those squares up, if you take 1 more wound over that maximum, your character is taken out. And you might be thinking, well, what happens when I've got no sort of space left? That means I can't put any initiative dice on, I can't do anything. That's when the Destiny dice start to kind of come into play as well. So you might be, if you've got a character that's taken 4 damage and you're really worried about them, you might, as a team, if you like, decide to right, you can use the Destiny dice until you can sort of heal yourself up a little bit. So as you take damage, you physically get less initiative dice, which means you can do less things. So it's a nice little mechanic in that. Also, during the initiative phase, the leader, so when I say the leader, what happens is, of all the players that are playing the game who are playing the part of the heroes, 1 person is selected as the leader, and they make a lot of kind of the decisions within the game. So the leader makes an initiative deck by taking a card for each of the hero that's in the mission and each enemy group which you pulled out from the encounter cards. You shuffle all those cards together and you place them along the combat track. If you're familiar with Blackstone Fortress, you'll have seen this before. And here you can see it's basically along this track, so where it's got 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the order in which the different kind of sort of heroes and enemies activate. And then there is one of these cards for each of the different either enemy groups or each different hero. Now what you can do is, if for example the way they come out, unfortunately all of the enemies activate before the heroes get a chance, you might think that's a bit unbalanced. Now I'm gonna be in trouble every turn with this. You can spend one of your activation dice to use what's called a gambit, and this will see you being able to kind of change the order, the initiative order. So that's a nice little mechanic as well. So then we go on to the activation phase, and this is where you, the hero, can do all of the different activations, all of the different actions that you want to do. It's also where your enemies get to activate as well. And this is where you get to use your own activation dice or the common destiny dice. Now how you use those activation dice is, if you've rolled them and you've got kind of a couple of 1s, a 5 and a 6 for example, you can use any number to be able to do a move action. So you can use a 1 all the way through to a 6. You can use one of those dice to do a move action. And you can see here it says move 3/4. This is because the first number is just a normal move, so you can use any number dice you want to move 3 squares on the board. The second number is if you want to do a run action. So you can run 4 squares. However, in order to do that, you must use a 3+ dice. We then see the weapons as well, so you can attack with weapons. Let me move that so you can see it. The first one there is the Ardent Blade. You can see this is on a 1+. So again, any dice that you have in your activation pool there, you can use that. You can see it is a melee attack, which means you must be in an adjacent square to the enemy that you're attacking. You can see it rolls one of the red, I forget what they're called now, not activation dice, whatever they're called, the ones that you roll for attacks and stuff. And I forget, is the 5... I forget how many sides is on the 5 one. It could be a 10-sided one, I can't remember. But it does 2 or 3 damage. So on these sides of these dice, there is basically blanks, which is a miss. There is a 1, which is basically a 1 single success. If you get a single success, you do the first amount of damage. In this instance, for the Ardent Blade, it is 2 damage. And on some sides, there are 2 successes, which is classed as a critical success. And this, in this case, would do 3 damage. The next weapon there, you've got the Judgment, which I think is his kind of like his blunderbuss gun. And this, you would need to take a 5+. So only 5s and 6s on the dice in your pool, or the dice in the Destiny dice pool, you'll be able to use to fire this weapon. It's a ranged weapon, which means you need to have line of sight to the enemy model, and you also need to not be in an adjacent square. Here you roll 2 of the blue dice, which are the kind of the D4s, I think they are. And again, a single success would do 2 damage, a critical success would do 4 damage. And then there's something called Firewood Stakes, which is part of the unique abilities, which I'll come on to. And this is called a dual type of weapon. This means you can either do it as a ranged or as a melee attack. So it doesn't matter if the enemy is right beside you or further away. As long as you've got line of sight, you can use them. And in this one, you use the, I think it's like a bone-coloured D6-sided dice. And this one would do 1 damage, no matter whether it is a single success or a critical success. And you can see below there as well, you have the heroes have unique abilities. This one has a one called Ruthless, and each time an attack roll is made for this hero and is successful, if the target is still visible, this hero can make 1 free Firewood Stake weapon action against the same target. So you can see on that Firewood Stakes, there is no number beside it. That means it's because you're not sort of using the dice for this one. It's almost like part of like a bonus action type thing. What else can you do? There are other things you can do as well to use the dice. You can also you can heal up. So on a 3+, you can basically, on a 4+, you can spend a 4+ dice and then roll your defense dice. In this case, it's the blue D4 dice, and 1 success will see you heal 1 point of 1 wound, or will let you flip a grievous wound to a normal wound, and a critical success, the 2 successes if you like, will allow you to remove 2 wounds or remove a grievous wound completely, and I'll come on to wounds and that in a little bit later. You can also search, so I think it's on a 4+ as well. You can search the objectives to try and find some treasure or some realm stone. And you can also, as I mentioned before as well, I think on a 4+, if you're at one of those gates where you can call in the skyship to allow you at the end of a mission to basically escape and leave the mission as well. Also at the bottom here, you can see something called Path to Glory. Each of the heroes at some point can sort of level up. They can be inspired. And I can show you here as well. This is what basically on the inspired side, you flip the card over, and what generally happens is it tends to make them either a little bit faster, a bit stronger in combat, maybe their weapons do a little bit more damage, and each hero will inspire in a different way. So it's something to kind of keep an eye on with that one. When it is the enemy's turn to attack, or when it's the enemy's turn in order to actually to activate, if you like, what you roll what is called the quest dice. This is a D12, the black D12 there, and consult the behavior table. So here, for example, we can see for the Ulfen Watch, on a 1 to a 2, it basically you can deploy any slain Ulfen Watch. So this is the kind of the soldiers that you've killed, the skeleton army coming back again, rising from the dead again. On a 3 to an 8, the models can do a charge, which is a move and an attack action. And on a 9 to a 12, they do something called Dance Macabre, which is basically make a move action and then make a charge action, which makes them super fast. So you roll that black quest dice. Again, the leader does this and decides sort of how to move them and who to attack. The weapons work exactly the same way as the hero's weapons do. So here we've got a rusted weapon. It's a melee attack, which means it has to be in an adjacent square. You roll 2 of those bone-coloured 6-sided dice. 1 success would do 1 damage. 2 successes or a critical success would do 2 damage. The difference being that when an enemy attacks a hero, the hero gets to roll their defense dice. And what it means is if they get 1 success, they will negate 1 point of damage, and if they get a critical success on the defense dice, they will ignore 3 points of damage. So it does make the heroes a little more robust. Next up here as well, if you take any damage, as I mentioned before, you will get one of these wound tokens. I'm certainly familiar with these from Silver Tower, and basically, every time you take a point of damage, you fill in one of those squares on your card, and this will reduce the number of activation dice that you can use during your turn. As I mentioned before, there is a way to try and heal up. You can recuperate and try and heal up using one of your 4+ dice. You basically roll your vitality dice. I think I said defense before, but you roll your vitality dice, which is the bone square colored one there on this character. 1 success heals 1 wound or flips the grievous wound over, and a critical success heals 2 wounds or removes a grievous wound in total. There are other effects in the game as well where you can kind of take different effects. You can suffer like as being stunned, you can be fatigued, you can be buried even, you can be cursed, you can be diseased, or you can be trapped as well. These are just a few of the different things that can happen to you. So there's plenty of stuff that can happen to your characters during the game as well. Lastly, we come to the event phase. Here is where we kind of check win conditions. Have we completed the mission? Do we need to leave now? You also roll on the event table. So again, you roll the quest dice, and rolling on the event table, it might sort of bring back any of your downed, your fallen heroes. They might kind of heal up and come back to the fight. It might give your enemies a free activation, or it might cause something called a crisis. Now, a crisis, it says, may see you saving civilians or maybe answering a mysterious call for help from one of the dark back alleys of Ulfencon. And what will happen is whoever you've nominated to be the leader will choose one of the heroes in that next turn to go off on their own and try and solve this crisis. While everybody else is continuing with the mission, trying to take down the bad guys, one person has to go off on their own and try and solve this crisis. And if they're successful, it may result in finding treasure or some kind of sort of realm stones. Or maybe it might cause kind of fear or influence to rise as well if they fail. So it's a nice little kind of sort of twist, like sort of mechanic. It's also a way that basically kind of like it pits like players against each other a little bit as well. Like you might not be kind of sending the right person to go and do that as the leader. And so the game itself, whilst it doesn't have like a games master, you could run the game with one. So the games master, whilst they're not making a lot of decisions, they would basically take over all the actions that a leader would do. Let me just go back to the screen here. And what they would do is they would decide where the enemies move to. So you'd roll on the behavior table, which would tell you what they have to do. But then this person would decide which kind of enemies attack which heroes, if you like. They'll get to decide who goes off and does these crises and that kind of stuff. So you could make it very much more RPG-esque and have a bit of a games master there as well. But that's the basic gameplay. If you're familiar with Silver Tower, if you're familiar with Shadows over Hammerhall, if you're familiar with Blackstone Fortress, there's a lot of that stuff that we see in this game. There's a few things that I've noticed that I think when you roll on the behavior table for your enemy, you roll 1 dice for that enemy group, and all of the enemies in that group basically do the same behavior movement, if you like. I think in Blackstone Fortress you used to have to roll for each individual model, so that just speeds things up. I also think in Blackstone Fortress, I don't think it was that easy, or maybe not at all, to be able to heal up grievous wounds. You can do that in this one. You can do a recuperate action, which allows you to basically heal up. However, while you're doing that, the clock's ticking down, getting down towards night time for them vampires coming out. The fear's rising, the influence is rising. I like the way there's this kind of impending doom. I like it if you're familiar with games like The Walking Dead, where you have the threat tracker going around. If you've played Hellboy, the board game, and you have that kind of like the clock of doom thing type of thing, which is like ticking down, that kind of stuff just puts a little bit of pressure onto the game. It stops you just being able to just go, right, we're going to do a mission where we're looking for treasure. We're going to go looking for treasure. We're going to go looking for treasure. We're going to go looking for treasure. Until basically you just become all powerful and then breeze through the rest of the game. There are other things that you have to be concentrating on in order to kind of to complete the mission within the time scale, because the longer you hang around, the harder it's going to become. So for me, I'm excited for the game. The price, maybe a little bit higher than I would have liked, but not as high as it could have been. For me personally, I think it's probably a fair price. There are a lot of models inside that box, and there seems to be bags of gameplay in there as well. So I'm going to be trying to get my hands on it on Saturday, 10 o'clock with everybody else, pressing refresh. So yeah, just as I mentioned at the start, get yourself prepped in advance. Make sure you've got all your details filled in online on your My Warhammer account, or you've kind of confirmed with your friendly local gaming store. It will come back at some point, but we just don't know when it'll come back. So if you're sort of gagging to play this game, at least kind of make sure you try and get in, and don't wait until Monday or Tuesday and decide you want to try and pre-order it, because chances are you're going to be waiting a little while longer if you miss out on Saturday at 10 o'clock. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.